Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Friday, November 27th, 2020, and today we're going to be talking about the electoral shift in a number of these key battleground states. While a number of these swing states actually ended up voting for Donald Trump, you cannot deny the fact that many of them, every single one of them except for one, has shifted towards the left in this election. That comes with a newly elected President Biden, and that makes sense. He won the election, so it should be a pretty significant shift in some of these states, especially since Donald Trump won many of these swing states back in 2016. In fact, 5 out of these in total, I guess you could say 10 swing states, Donald Trump won them back in 2016. Or I guess you could say out of the 10 Trump states that were competitive this cycle, Donald Trump won obviously 10 of them. He lost 5 of them this time around. So I know I worded that a little weirdly. Sorry about that. But what I'm trying to say is that Joe Biden has swung every single one of these states with the exception of one towards the left. It doesn't matter that Donald Trump still won these states. If he's not going in to the White House in January, well, it really doesn't matter because the Democratic Party is going to be targeting these states very heavily in future elections. Because they now have shifted a number of these states to the left, it's a very real possibility that if Democrats get a more inspirational candidate than Joe Biden, get a more inspirational vice presidential candidate, then Kamala Harris, whatever it might be, the Democratic Party has ample opportunities to actually hone in on some of these competitive races and shifted races that shifted overwhelmingly to the left or sometimes just by a little amount and capitalize on that and use that to their advantage in the midterm elections, in special elections, in presidential elections. So when you're looking at this map, you see that literally every single state has moved towards the left. Every single battleground state. Texas, Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska second, Maine second, Maine, New Hampshire. Every single state except for one state, and that is the state of Florida. Florida showed us that despite the Democratic Party really trying to push away from that socialist idea, away from that Donald Trump type of ideology, and really tried to cling on to what Hillary Clinton won back in 2016. They showed us that they were unable to do that. They showed us they were unable to do that in a Democratic wave year as well. 2018, they lost both the governorship and the Senate election, which should have been winnable, were winnable. They just didn't win it. And if the Democratic Party looks at this map, they're probably saying, this is good. And it is good. The fact that they shifted every single swing state with the exception of one is very significant. But you do have to acknowledge the fact that Florida is the only red state on that map. While the rest of these states may have swung, and we'll talk about the margins and why they matter, it wasn't by an overwhelming large amount. Yes, it's blue, but it should have been because Biden won the election. If you're looking at the closest races in terms of which states actually moved by the lowest amount, you have Nevada and Ohio. Nevada shifted by less than 0.1% in favor of Biden. Ohio has shifted by 0.1% in favor of Biden. Both of these states saw a very large increase in vote share. Let's take a look at the actual increase. In Ohio, 7.7% more people voted, based off raw vote share in a state that's declining in population. In Nevada, 24.9% more voters, 25% more voters in this election than the last one. Nothing changed. So overall, this was favorable, I could say, to Joe Biden because these states moved and we saw increased turnout, which made a number of these swing states bluer. But you also have to acknowledge the fact that Biden could have done better. While he did better in Maine at large, he swung it by more than 5%. He swung New Hampshire, Minnesota, and Colorado, all states that were very much competitive back in 2012, 2016 even, 2008, that are now more solidified for the Democratic Party. And not that I was expecting a number of these swing states to swing to Donald Trump with an election defeat, but some of these margins are pretty significant. The fact that Democrats really were able to double down on some of their victories in 2016 is a telling statement. Nevada was the only state Hillary Clinton won in 2016 that was a toss-up that didn't actually shift too heavily in favor of the Democratic Party. Colorado shifted by more than 5, Minnesota, New Hampshire, all states that were exceptionally close. If you remember, Clinton won New Hampshire by 2,000 votes. Minnesota was won by the Democrats by the narrowest margin since 1984. Colorado moved to Hillary Clinton, I believe actually just as much as it voted for Obama, but this time it voted, I think, by double digits at least. Let's go ahead and see. Current 2020 results, Biden plus 13.5. So while Trump did win some of these states, they are moving. And they are moving leftward. So if the Democratic Party has just an even slightly better election performance in 2024, combined with increasing minority groups in some of these states and decreasing minority groups in some of these states, we could see Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania narrowly retain in the Democratic column, but an expansion of the electoral map for the Democratic Party. But because of this, we are going to see the Democratic Party making sure that they target Georgia, making sure that they target Arizona and Texas. These three states in the Sun Belt region that moved in favor of the Democratic Party, Arizona by 4, Texas by 3, Georgia by 6. So overall, these numbers are very good for the Democratic Party, but you do have to acknowledge that Florida being red there doesn't really help them. They really needed to win Florida if they wanted to go into this election with a mandate, but it doesn't look as if they're going to be able to get it. Already been declared for Donald Trump, already certified for Donald Trump, but there are still discussions about the election itself, even though it has been over 5 times by now. But I think the major takeaway is that the Democratic Party should be happy with where they performed in 2020, but they could have done better. They could have taken some of these results and made them bluer. They could have taken back the blue wall the same way that Obama won it. They could have made Texas and Florida and Arizona bluer than they were already. Nevada, bluer than it was already. New Mexico, Colorado, bluer. Virginia, bluer. States with large Hispanic populations that moved away from the Democratic Party. Moved away heavily. Texas, we saw the Rio Grande Valley have counties that moved by over 50 points in favor of the GOP compared to 2016. We saw Miami-Dade County, which moved by over 20 points in favor of the GOP. In one of the most populous counties in the state of Florida, a very large Hispanic population there. Donald Trump received 200,000 more votes than he did in 2016 against Hillary Clinton. Joe Biden received less votes than Hillary Clinton. So even with the increased turn, actually it might have been more by 20,000, but it was nowhere near the large amount that Donald Trump received in that state. It was just such a bad shift for the Democratic Party in Florida. It counteracted a number of gains made by the Democrats in Texas and Arizona. So at face value, yes, this is good. Further than face value, still good. But you cannot, you still have to recognize some of those shifts besides the statewide one, looking at county levels, congressional level, certain regions of the state. You have to acknowledge, Trump did better amongst Hispanic voters, did better amongst Latino voters than he did in 2016. But Biden did better amongst white voters, which make up the overwhelming majority of the American electorate. That's why, despite minority groups shifting in favor of Trump, which they did, more so than they voted for him in 2016, the entire map seems blue. That's because this state moved, the entire country moved to the left because the overwhelming white electorate moved in favor of Biden, but the minority groups still said, we're not going to vote for Biden as much as we did for Hillary. And that may be a testament to Hillary's ability to win over some of these voters. It may be a testament as to Donald Trump as a candidate. It could be a combination of both. It could also be a testament that Biden may not have the same type of commitment from these voters that Hillary Clinton did or Barack Obama did. Whatever it might be, Biden underperformed. So when you're looking at this map, yes, good for Democrats in most ways that you look at it. But they should still acknowledge some of these unfortunate results for them. They should acknowledge that Florida, one of the most hotly contested swing states, for decades, it's been one of the most hotly contested swing states. Republicans won it by currently 3.4%. That is 2.2% more than 2016. Look at this map. New York is expected to move over into the Biden column once they finish counting ballots. They have 15% of precincts remaining, mainly from New York City. But if you're looking at this map, Illinois, okay, that's an anomaly. It's only narrow. Trump outperformed by 0.1%. Not a big deal. Arkansas, Republicans did better by 0.7%. Hillary Clinton had some residual Clinton support. Okay. Utah, no third-party candidate on the ballot. That's a conservative. Evan McMullin, Gary Johnson taken off the ballot. No real third-party opposition there. But this is actually very good news for the Democrats in Utah. Clinton received 27%. Biden received 39%. Significant improvement, just overshadowed by the lack of a third-party candidate there. In California, 0.9% shift, not super significant. Still voted for Biden by roughly 30 points. So the state of Florida, Hawaii actually sent a ballot to every single voter, so it probably encouraged voters that traditionally didn't vote to vote maybe for Trump or maybe vote for a certain candidate, which in turn hurt Joe Biden's candidacy. But Moving over to Florida, this is the state with the second largest shift across the country. I'm not going to count New York until they finish counting ballots. We're expecting it to go blue, move further left than it did in 2016, but we still have yet to see that happen. But I'm not going to take it because the results are far from certified, and we still have over 1 million outstanding ballots in that one state alone. But Florida, a 2.2% shift when every other swing state swung to the left. Florida has a very large white population, has a very large senior population, has a very large Hispanic population. But, the shift that Biden gained amongst white voters was not enough to counteract the amount of Hispanic voters there that moved in favor of Donald Trump. Texas, it was. Arizona, it was. Nevada, it was. But all in all, those are warning signs to the Democratic Party that they cannot ignore. They need to focus on that as early as 2022. Even more so, even more early, even earlier than 2022, 2021 special elections that are going to take place, 2022 special elections that will take place before the midterms. So following those cabinet appointments, we're going to be seeing some possible competitive races, even if it's a safe race. We've seen safe races turn to competitive races overnight. So the Republican Party is probably going to try to hone in on this Hispanic support, and as soon as the Biden campaign loses this white support amongst voters that traditionally elected GOP candidates, that voted for GOP candidates down ballot, that just didn't like Donald Trump, these minority voters that moved over to Trump are down ballot voters as well. So while Biden may have won over some of these white voters on the presidential level, they still voted for Republicans down ballot. These minority voters that the Republican Party and Trump won over are voting for Republicans down ballot. So they are going to come to a point where there won't be that white vote that can counteract the minority shift in favor of the GOP. But this may be just a very weird election. Trump is a one-in-a-lifetime candidate, as was Obama. Trump has shown us a campaign tactic that has never been employed before, or at least never been employed and worked, and he did it. And he was able to win more votes than he did in 2016. He didn't win the election. He lost it by the same exact margin that Hillary Clinton lost it in 2016. But you do also have to realize that he was a pretty strong candidate, and he was able to bring over some of these voters. So main takeaway is, yes, every single swing state, Rust Belt specifically, pretty much everywhere except for Florida, shifted in favor of the Democratic Party in terms of swing states, which is good news for them. They are probably going to take this and try to replicate it in 2022, replicate it in 2024, which is absolutely possible. But until they recognize this minority shift, it's very possible as well that the Republican Party shifts some of these states back in favor of the GOP. I think that this Sun Belt region should be a prime target of dissection for the Democratic Party to look at what they did wrong in this election. But all in all, I think that this is positive for them, but I'm not going to say super reassuring looking into future elections. There's still possibilities for the GOP to do better. There's still possibilities that Democrats underperform because they may have swung some of these states, but it was definitely at a point in this election where these states could have swung by larger amounts, and they simply didn't because of the Democratic Party's campaign techniques, the Democratic Party with the Republican opposition research, whatever it might be. These states could have swung by a lot more. So good for Biden, good for Democrats, yes. Could have been way more, and also acknowledge some of those voters that have shifted away from 2016 when Hillary Clinton even lost the election. And Joe Biden won this one, but not necessarily didn't win over some of these minority voters the same way that he should have, or any Democrat should have. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my post-2020 election videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.